That conversation we had about the electric vehicles was a couple of episodes ago, and we're reaching a lot of new listeners now. And on top of that, I found that whole story incredibly fascinating because we think of the automobile as an American invention, if there ever was one, and we think of ourselves as being on the cutting edge of their development, even now with electric vehicles and Tesla. So, for those of our listeners who aren't familiar with this story, just are we not dominating electric vehicles anymore? What's going on?
I'll be happy to do it. But the most important thing about it is that interested, intelligent, thoughtful people like your audience and like you don't know it. That ought to worry you. Okay, here it is. 15 years ago, the automobile industry began a competition. Who could come up with the best electric vehicle? Because it was understood and generally viewed that's the future of the automobile industry. We are in a transition for ecological reasons and cost reasons, blah, blah, blah. We're moving away from fossil fuels that make our cars run, gasoline, and we're going to go to electric. Okay. That was a consensus. Why? Because there were very few voices, but very few voices which were drowned out in the United States, pushed aside the way these folks usually are, which said that this was fundamentally irrational, that what the country needs is mass transit. Why? Because the individual vehicle is a ridiculous way of organizing transportation. Most cars spend most of every day sitting somewhere. This is nuts. What are you doing? Yeah, it's in your garage, it's in the street, it's in the parking facility. What are you doing? So that for 20 minutes a day, or maybe even an hour a day, you're actually in there. But the rest of the time sits there. What? You can even see the understanding carefully that we now have bicycles here in New York City. Loads of them all over. Every few blocks there's a bunch of, and when you need a bicycle, you get a bicycle. You pull it out, it's automated, you drive around and you stick it back in one of the holders, and that way a terribly amount of waste is avoided. We're not building millions of bicycles because we don't need millions. Millions of people want a bicycle, we'll provide it. 20,000 will do it very nicely because I'll take it for the hour I need it and put it back in, and John will come, and then Mary will come, and we'll share. We have a mass transit system for bicycles, just like we have here in New York City, a subway with a fantastic invention. It takes many more people at an infinitely lower cost. Nobody gets injured or once in a blue moon by a subway. No, it's just, it doesn't pollute. It's infinitely better to do mass transit. Do it beautifully. Do it elegantly. People say to me, well, what would that mean? I say, go to Europe to get on a train.
Tokyo.
Go to Tokyo. I'm familiar with Europe. The trains are magnificent. You have even the super fast ones, Why the United States is so far behind, we'll leave aside, although fascinating. Anyway, 15 years ago, we're going to do the electric car. Stupid, because you're replacing the private car with another private car, but at least better than fossil fuel, it'll be electricity run. Okay, Tesla is one of the early pioneers and makes Mr. Elon Musk a household name and rich, very rich. But General Motors works on it, Ford works on it, Toyota works on it, everybody works on it. But here we are now, 15 years later. The Chinese have automobile companies. They work on it too. But they win. They win the competition. The best car, best electric car and truck, at the lowest price, is made by the BYD Corporation, precisely unknown in the United States for a simple reason. They're not permitted to come here. If you go to Europe today and you go on the highways, you'll see BYD vehicles all over the place. Why? Mr. Biden First, Mr. Trump put a 27% tariff on electric vehicles from China. And then Mr. Biden, while he was still president, raised it to 100%. So if you want to get a BYD electric car, say it costs $30,000. If you're an American company or an American individual, you would have to come up with 30 grand that goes to China to buy the car. And then 100% another 30 grand that goes to Uncle Sam as a tariff, costing you 60,000. What does this mean? It means that Americans won't buy the Chinese car because it's 60 grand, and they can get for 45 or 50,000 a Tesla or a GM. This is a tariff that protects Tesla and GM. That's why it's there. But it denies to the American people access to the best electric vehicle at the lowest price. And now let me explain very briefly why that is stupid. Okay? American companies compete with companies in the rest of the world. American companies that make shoes, if there are any left, American companies that make anything. They need trucks, for example. They need a truck to bring the inputs to wherever they carry out production, and they need trucks to take the output to wherever it's sold, right? So trucks are widely used input here in America by American companies and everywhere else in the world. But everywhere else in the world is now going to be able to get the best quality electric truck for 30,000, whereas their American competitor could only get the best electric truck if they paid 60, which they won't. They'll buy an inferior truck and still pay more than their competitor pays for the superior truck. And you know what that means? American companies are going to lose the competition and eventually lay off the workers since they can't sell their products that have been too expensively produced. So you're protecting the workers at GM and Ford, but at the expense of not only many other American workers, but I can tell you as a mathematical economist, we cannot know whether the jobs we protect in the automobile industry won't be overwhelmed by the jobs we lose as a result of this tariff.